All right, let's just jump right in. You know, you probably think your biggest expense is rent, right? Or maybe your mortgage. But what if I told you there's this silent partner, taking a cut of every single thing you buy? This hidden force kind of sets the pace for our whole world. So, in this explainer, we're going to uncover how the price of oil is basically the master lever for the entire global machine. And you know what's just wild? The sheer scale of it. This quote just hits the nail on the head. We're not just talking about gas for your car here. No way. We're talking about the fundamental energy that powers, well, everything. Modern civilization itself. It's literally the heartbeat of the global economy. I know it sounds a little abstract, right? But that's the big question we're diving into. How does some oil field, thousands of miles away, literally decide how much you pay for breakfast? Because the connection is way more direct than you probably think. Okay, so let's start by looking past the place we all see oil prices every day, because its real impact, it's not just at the gas pump. It is woven into the very fabric of our economy. Yeah, think of oil as kind of economic lube that keeps the gears of global trade spinning nice and smooth. But when that lube gets expensive, we get friction. A lot of it. The cost to make, to package, and to ship every single product goes up. And guess where that cost ends up? Yeah, with you, the consumer. So how does that actually work? I mean, did it get embedded in everything? Let's trace the journey of something super simple to really see it in action. Okay, this is a perfect example. Just think about a simple loaf of bread. A tractor, which runs on diesel, has to plant and harvest the wheat. Then a truck, also burning diesel, takes that wheat to a factory. The factory itself, it needs to use a ton of energy to make the bread. And then, you guessed it, another truck delivers it to your local store. See? Energy costs is a layer, just on top of each other, every step of the way. And this leads us to a really important economic idea. It's called a supply shock. So when the price of something as fundamental as energy just spikes, that whole complicated system gets way more expensive to run. And those costs, they don't just vanish. Nope, they get passed right on to you as higher prices for, well, everything. And that, my friends, is inflation. But wait, the story goes even deeper than just supply chains. To really get why oil has such massive impact, we got to look at the money the world uses to buy it. And that brings us to something called the petro-dollar system. So a little history lesson here. It's super important. For a long time, the US dollar was backed by gold, but then in 1971, that all stopped. It was called the Nixon shock. To keep the dollar as the world's top currency, the US made the huge deal with Saudi Arabia a few years later. The deal was pretty simple, really. Saudi Arabia would sell its oil to the world only in US dollars, and in return, the US would provide them with military protection. And that right there, that's the heart of the petrodollar system. Think about it. Because every single industrialized nation on Earth needs oil, that means every nation needs to keep a huge stash of US dollars on hand just to buy it. This creates this massive, kind of artificial but constant demand for the dollar all over the world. So what does all this mean? What are the consequences? Well, for the United States, this constant demand for dollars means the government can borrow money way more easily and cheaply. But for everyone else, it means the entire global financial system gets tied to two things: the supply of oil and the stability of the US dollar. It links global finance and geopolitics in a really direct and sometimes messy way. All of a sudden, the foreign policy of a country like the US, or the political stability of an oil-producing nation, becomes absolutely critical to everybody's economy. Okay, so let's bring this all back down. From that high-level 30,000-foot view, what actually happens to us, to you and me, when this gigantic system hits a snag? Because here's the thing. This system is incredibly powerful, but also shockingly fragile. A single geopolitical event, a war kicking off in an oil region, or even something like a ship getting stuck sideways in the Suez Canal can cause one of those sudden supply shocks. The energy pulse just skips a bit, and the gears of the entire global economy start to grind to a halt. And that can lead to something really, really nasty. Look, we've all heard of inflation, right? That's when prices go up. But a really bad energy shock can cause something called stagflation. And that is the absolute worst of both worlds. You get rising prices at the same time as a shrinking economy, and people losing their jobs. It's basically a depression. But everything costs more. Just awful. So after all this, what's the big takeaway here? Well, while oil prices cause all these dramatic short-term swings, what really matters for our standard of living, in the long run, is something else entirely. Productivity. It's our ability to create more value with less work, which, as you can see, is completely tied to having stable, affordable, and efficient energy. So to wrap it all up, for right now, today, the price of oil is still the undisputed master lever of this global machine we all live in. And understanding its central role is honestly the key to understanding why our economy acts the way it does. And that leaves us with one last really crucial question. We've seen how this whole system was built and how it keeps the world humming along today. But as we start looking to the future, new technologies, new sources of energy, what do you think might become the next master lever of tomorrow's economy? Is it energy? AI? Something we're not even paying attention to yet? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and I might turn your idea into the next video.